Hello and welcome to Tangerine Talk. I'm William Watt, and today, as ever, we're joined by Steve Canavan. We're going to look back at the Friday night's result against Hull, talk about the accounts and Carl and Owen Oyston, and also look forward to Tuesday night's game against Derby. First of all, we'll start with on the pitch matters. Steve, Friday night, it was a good start from Blackpool, but a really poor finish.
Yeah, it was, because it was such a long weekend. I'm trying to remember what happened there. They played really well, didn't they? First half, and for about an hour actually. And I thought the key moment was that Kevin Phillips shot, a great save from the Hull keeper who played really well, and that was the difference. And then they just started to sit back a bit, didn't they? Fair play to Hull, they pushed on. They looked quite a good team, and then he tried to go five at the back, which is unusual for Holloway, and that probably invited pressure on a little bit more. And in the end, they just conceded it. I've watched it several times. I don't know if you've seen the goal, but it's a strange one, isn't it? I don't know whether Baptiste's at fault or not, or it's just unlucky that he just lands in that little danger zone between the.
Do you think that's a keeper area?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just one of those things. I don't think anyone was really at fault. I think Baptiste possibly could have headed it, could have been an own goal though, and then he thought maybe Gilks was going to come. It's just one of those unfortunate things. If the header had landed a centimetre either way, someone would have probably cleared it, be it Gilks or Baptiste. So yeah, unlucky and really disappointing, because I think that would have kept alive the automatic hopes. But I think now it's looking, especially with West Ham's, Southampton, it's just looking as though that's a step too far. So I think it's all now to try and cement the playoff place. And that's the aim.
It's a classic case of needing a second goal, really, isn't it? Because Blackpool came out like a house on fire.
Superb. That first 10 minutes was brilliant.
They were awesome, and I was doing the minute by minute, and the amount of chances that Blackpool created, whether some of them were long range efforts, but the amount of chances Blackpool created, they really should have got the second goal.
Yeah, the start of the match, and I think Holloway had been calling for that. Then he wanted to start a higher tempo, especially at home where they were struggling a bit. That was as good at home as it had been since Middlesbrough, which I think was January the 2nd or 3rd or something. So at least they seem to be getting back to their old form. And he was clever on his tactic. He said after that he went a bit more direct. He played Bednar, and I thought he's still settling in a bit, and he's still lacking sharpness, but he did a job on the night because he just unsettled the
when he went off, I thought we missed him. I thought that was one of them. I mean, there's talk about his substitutions. I think bringing on Luar, who doesn't exactly keep the ball that well, in a game that was that tight for me, was a bit of an iffy one. And I really think when you've not conceded a goal, when your back four are playing so well, Baptiste, they were all playing really well, to throw on an extra centre half, throw him in the middle of everything. All of a sudden, people don't know who they're marking, they don't know who they're picking up. And cause if you look at the goal, the ball went out to the right wing, and Everett was out there. Instead of Craney being out there like he normally would be.
But Everett was marking the fella at the back post, wasn't he? And he ran out. He had to, and it wasn't Everett's fault, was it?
No, I'm not blaming Everett. I'm just saying the fact that they've put an extra man in there confuses everybody and mixes everything up. And I just don't know whether he'd have been.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, I never. Yeah, you take your point and you're right. Yeah, but I never like him doing defensive substitutions anyway, because as we all know, Blackpool have never been particularly good at defending anyway. It's more because of the way they play. That's not a pop at the defenders, because they play so attacking. It leaves the defence. Obviously, they're better off when they go on the front foot. And I think it'll be one of them in a few weeks' time where he might say, "Well, yeah, I wish I'd." Maybe brought Dicko on and tried to stretch him with his pace, etc., rather than bring an extra defender on. But yeah, when they sit back, it was inviting pressure, wasn't it? And you could sort of see it coming, really, couldn't you? I think the last 20 minutes they were under the cosh quite a bit. And fair play to Hull, they're a good team, they came back. But I think the goalkeeper for them was the difference. But he played really well, made several good saves. And what a goal from Tom Ince, by the way. I didn't realise, I knew it was good, but then I saw it back on TV. What a strike that was.
Great technique.
Yeah, it was one outside the foot. That's really difficult.
We can't mention Friday's game without mentioning Keith Southern. Absolutely brilliant, wasn't he?
Superb.
He was possessed.
We were sat in the stand talking, weren't we? We were just saying, he was just, considering that's his first league start since, when he had his illness. Absolutely, just magnificent. And when he fell to the floor, then I was worried about him, because I thought after the full time whistle, he collapsed on his back, and he was just exhausted. Spoke to him afterwards, and he just said he was shattered, but he really enjoyed it. Felt like it was, back to his best, and it was how it used to be when he's running around. And but he used the ball so well as well. It wasn't just Keith getting stuck in and being what Keith is. He played cleverly. He was back defending, getting headers out. He was pushing forward. I thought it was absolutely superb, and I thought he was man of the match, not just by a little bit, by an absolute mile. He played brilliantly.
It's good for Keith, because people almost, I don't know, ignorantly have kind of dismissed him since he got ill and thought of them, we've got Basham now, we've got Angel.
We've moved on to it.
I still don't think either of them do as good a job as a fully flying Keith. Keith gives absolutely everything, and at the Championship level, he's perfect.
It's a bit like Brett, innit? I know Brett's obviously sort of getting on a bit now, but he still does a job, doesn't he? And because he knows what the manager wants, and Keith's exactly the same. He knows what that job is, and he will never give in. He'll always keep going. I still think he'd be in my team, and I think him and Ferguson the way they sit in front of the back four, they complement each other nicely. It allows them to have 4 up front and still have that cover in front of the back four. And yet Keith Southern, how many times have we said the sentence over the last decade? Keith Southern will be in my team still every time, which is bloody testament to the lad, isn't it? Who just continues. Sorry, that was my phone. Who continues to just keep doing the business. He's a brilliant lad. And he was absolutely magnificent, and a nice story as well after what he's been through to come out and play that well.
It's incredible. Super. It's incredible when you think that he was sat in a doctor's surgery at the beginning of December, being told he had a very serious illness. Yes, and to be playing at the start of March, he's back putting a man of the match performance. Incredible. Absolutely awesome. Super. Awesome.
And I think you could also tell how much he'd moved on. You know, when he came back at the end of January against Sheffield Wednesday, I think that was probably slightly too soon with hindsight. I think you could tell now, 6 weeks down the line, how much he's come on and his fitness and his sharpness, and he just looked great.
Everybody's absolutely over the moon, Keith. Now off the field, the Blackpool's accounts were released last week. It showed, there was a lovely press release that came of it. It showed huge profits, huge increase of turnover, and everything was all rosy. And then people delved a bit deeper into the accounts, and it came out that there was a few little interesting points. One of which that.
It's an understatement.
Blackpool's one Blackpool director, namely Owen Oyston, was paid £11 million bonuses last year. This isn't money that he's owed. This isn't money that's gone into the South Stand. This is a bonus, I believe. What do you make of it, first of all?
Difficult. I mean, my first point is that this talk about Owen Oyston being a director and the fact that he got paid 5-6 times as much as the director at Man United is a bit misleading, because he's not the director. He owns the club. So it's like saying the Glazers didn't get anything out of United winning the Premier League title. Of course they did. The Glazers will have made an absolute packet from United winning the Premier League. So all that stuff that was in the Daily Mail article, great article by the way, I thought it was really good, but it was very one-sided, let's not forget that. And I don't want to come across as an Oyston sort of apologist.
You've accused of that sometimes.
Yeah, I know I am, but it's my job to sort of look at it balanced. I'm not a fan. I can look at it, take a step back and look objectively. And as I've said in today's paper, was anyone naive enough to think that the Oystons wouldn't profit from Blackpool being in the Premier League? Of course they would. And if I was in charge of that club and I'd taken them to Premier League, I'd take some of the money. I mean, it just goes with it.
Well, it's being a boss of the business. People do forget that football is a business for these people. This is Owen Oyston's business, you know. Yeah. So if he was owning a shop that had a £90 million windfall, they'd take a few quid. Yeah. I think.
And also, what the Mail article didn't say is that when Owen Oyston took over, Blackpool were absolutely up the creek without a paddle. They were about to go under. I mean, I've been looking at the cuttings from back at the time. They were absolutely seriously in danger of going in extinction. So he came in, he ploughed money in then. He's ploughed money in since then on several occasions. I'd forgotten about the North and West Stand. He funded a lot of the North West Stand, which wasn't cheap. He went halves with Valerie Bellicon on the South Stand, and he's continued to put money in. So he's probably, I mean, the estimates is between 20 and 30 million he's put in. So if you look at it like that, now since then, I've spoken to Carl last night. He was in the airport last night, and I spoke to him at length on and off the record about various things. And now he's pointed out, you know, the several things to do with this payment, and the biggest thing really to say to supporters and anyone listening is that the fact that this money, he pointed out, if they paid 11 million in wages to a player, which is sometimes what the fans want, and let's go and make a big signing or big signings and give them, you'd never see that money again. He's pointing out this 11 million isn't lost forever. You know, whether you believe this or not is up to you, but that this could be reinvested, that his dad will continue to help with the training, and he insists that will be done, etc. So it's not as if he's given 11 million away. It's to do with all sorts of things, and one of them being that it could be reinvested. So I'm aware a lot of people out there will be like, well, yeah, he would say that, wouldn't he, type thing, and do we believe that? And that's fair enough, you take a view on that, but it all comes down to the bottom line is that they run the club. It's been phenomenally successful beyond anyone's wildest dreams in the last 4 or 5 years. They can pretty much do what they want, and as long as they continue to progress the club and push it forward, then although it might not sit comfortably with everyone, they're justified in doing it. They've not done anything illegal. It might be, you could argue, it might be slightly immoral in some ways, but really, it's the way they do things, and like it or lump it, we have to accept it. I don't know what you think about it.
Well, I look at it two ways. I mean, there's an old quote from Vicky Oyston when she was chairman saying that the Oyston family write a cheque at the end of every month, this was years ago, of £50,000 just to see the club through. And in which case, if they've been doing that for 20 years, fair enough, they deserve some credit from it. I think what might annoy fans a little bit is in January last year, well, two things. One, Carl was on about the Greed League. We will not be taking all this vast amount of money that people make out the Premier League. We're not like that. So then to take £11 million plus other things out is slight contradiction. Yeah. The other thing is that in January, I think a lot of fans are slightly aggrieved that £3 million on a couple of players might well have kept Blackpool up. Instead, they went and loaned people like James Beattie, Kornilenko, Andy Reid, and they might think, well, if that money would have just been reinvested a little bit.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know what was said behind the scenes. We don't know if Ian Holloway said, "I want James Beattie, I want Kornilenko."
Of course, I'm sure he wanted them.
And how much money he asked for. I know what you mean.
I'm sure that was with the budget he was given. If he was allowed a much bigger budget, he wouldn't have been signing Andy Reid on loan, would he? Let's be fair.
Well, you'd think not, wouldn't you? We don't know. But what was the playing budget? Obviously doubled almost from the previous year. So they did, in their eyes, invest more. And Carl Oyston, again, speaking to him last night, says in any other industry, he said that we would be being congratulated for the profits we've turned, and this puts the future of the club completely comfortably for the next umpteen years.
Well, this is another point. Just a question that we see, and I don't know if you can answer it. It's probably one for the accountants, but people, when Blackpool got promoted, assumed, right, that's it. For the next 50 years, Blackpool are sound. But in the accounts, there's different things like that. They're still owed £15 million. The Oyston family, the Bellicons are owed £7 million. There's a few. I mean, is this going to provide a long-term legacy, or is this just paying off money that was already owed? And how much of this money will be left in the pot come the end of the year? There is a lot of unanswered questions still. It's still right at the start of this, isn't it? I mean, the news only emerged yesterday when the Mail on Sunday did this big sort of expose, and obviously we've got today speaking to Carl Oyston and putting his side of the story across, which is important, because I think whatever you think of the Oystons, he wasn't given the right to reply in yesterday's story in the Mail. So we said that today in the Gazette. And I think there'll be more to come. I mean, the figures haven't been properly analysed and broken down, and see who the MDs of all these companies are that they pay money to, etc. So I think there'll be a lot more to come on this. But fortunately for me, I'm off for the rest of the week, and you're taking over. So I expect Will Watt exclusives for the rest of the week. I'm busy in Derby tomorrow. Just to balance it out, as a fan, obviously on the pitch, Blackpool, the club is. We can't even begin to say how brilliant last year was, and how. Now we are an established Championship club that should be chasing Premier League promotion. We've got a great manager, some fantastic players. So it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, they have done a good job. I just think that the fans maybe just think it's just another case of money disappearing out of the club and never coming back. But
it's amazing, isn't it, when you actually take a step back and look at the bigger picture, how divisive the Oystons are. Considering we've just come out of the Premier League and how good it was, that even in the Premier League there was people slaughtering them, and it is incredible, really. I guess it does. I mean, if you sum up football, you can go to any club, can't you? And you'll always have a certain amount of people who support the chairman and the owners, and there'll always be people against them. And in Blackpool's case, it's been like that for donkey's years, isn't it? Because obviously the Oyston Owens are quite a flamboyant character, and it's just interesting. But I really think, it's football is a sort of a bit of a murky business in general. I've found from going to different clubs, and it's always going to be divisive, and you're always going to get people giving views. Still, I think what needs to be done, perhaps, is someone in the powers that be in the Football League, the Premier League, the FA, needs some sort of clear, transparent guidelines. I think that's the most important thing, that maybe either stops this happening, or they set out exactly what can and can't be done, because the Oystons, let's get this straight, have done absolutely nothing wrong.
Of course, no. Legally,
so they can say, well, we don't even have to. I mean, yesterday Carl really was a bit reluctant to say, well, I don't really need to explain myself. The only reason Carl spoke out last night is he was upset that his dad. He was saying, I don't mind getting any stick, but my dad has been pumping money into this club for 25 years, and I think it's dead unfair that he's getting criticism.
Because he is a genuine fan of it.
Because he is a genuine fan, like Carl, by his own admittance, isn't. He comes in cold-blooded and does things the way he thinks should be done. Owen is a genuine fan and has put, probably too much money in at times over the last, certainly in the mid-90s, whenever it was. So there's different arguments. It's going to rumble on and on. The bottom line is, they will be the owners for a very, very long time, and there's pretty much no one that can do about that, even if they wanted to.
In terms of safeguarding football future and these football clubs, I personally think the Premier League should be a lot more. They should dictate to the clubs a lot more where this money goes. I think if a club gets to the Premier League and hasn't got an academy, hasn't got undersoil heating, hasn't got certain other things, that they should say, well, you get this 90 million, but
you need to do this, and
you need to do this, and this if you want the money.
And I think that's enough for that.
I think because they do obviously get a huge windfall, and obviously there are perks and directors and owners and people like should get money, but I think also they should do more to protect the. Not saying that Blackpool Football Club isn't better than it was, but is it dramatically better than it was?
But that said, as an individual, totally agree with all that. But that said, as an individual, if I've put 11 million plus into a club, then when the moment came where I could take it back, and he's not taking it back in the Championship or anything like that, he's taking it back at the very moment the club could afford it. is he doing anything wrong to that? No, that's an argument, isn't it? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not trying to, over defend him, but that is an argument, isn't it? If you've loaned someone effectively a certain amount of money, you expect to get it back, don't you?
Absolutely.
So there's loads of different ways of looking at it, but I completely agree with your last point. The Premier League and the Football League should jointly, for both all owners of every club, say this is the way we do it. Everyone's got to obey these guidelines. I know in the Premier League they do clamp down. Blackpool had to give statements of their accounts every 3 months to the Premier League to prove they were doing things. So it is tighter in the Premier League. I'm not sure exactly the Football League's rules on that. I think it's once a year where you send your accounts off. But yeah, there should be rules to what you do with that money, perhaps, and it maybe would avoid sort of incidences like that. But they've done nothing wrong. That's the end of the.
Well, as a fan myself, I can only hope that we do have a legacy and that it doesn't all, fade away, because it was a great season.
Let's not forget these are good times. We'll go back. We are an established Championship club and we're doing well, and there's still a chance of promotion. And I speak to Glenn Bowles, and he made the point that let's hope this doesn't take the emphasis in the stands and on the terraces away from what we're actually trying to achieve.
That was my next point. Blackpool have got a game tomorrow night, another massive game, and people have kind of forgotten it. Now, whether Ian Holloway will see this as a positive, because all of a sudden people aren't talking about the fact that he conceded a late goal and that.
Well, yeah, we're going to go into him for his press conference today. I'm going to say that too.
That was one of my points. Did Holloway mention this accounts thing? Is he being asked about it?
He was asked about when he's not been, because obviously this only broke over the weekend, really, these figures. But he was asked about the initial 50 million turnover, 20 million profits, and he said it's great news, and it's the Oyston's business, whatever they do with that money. So he did. Whether he knew something was going to come out, I don't know. But he said it's completely up to them. He said the only thing I'm bothered about is the way I'm allowed to do things, and I've never had any interference. Carl's been a great chairman. Now, whether he's just saying that, I don't know, but he seems to have got on pretty well with the chairman. They haven't had any major bust-ups. I think there's a bit of problems last summer when they were all a bit cheesed off at coming out of the Premier League. But no, I think Ian Holloway will probably be asked about it today, and I expect him to say the same things again about it's up to the Oystons what they do. Whether privately he's a bit cheesed off, he didn't get more cash last year, who knows? But unless he says that, then we'll never know.
We move on to the game tomorrow night, or Tuesday night. Blackpool play Derby away. It's one of them tricky games, but especially after drawing at home on Friday, Blackpool could do with 3 points, couldn't they?
Yeah.
It's getting very tight.
It is, yeah. Derby haven't won in 8 games, so they're on a real downward sort of run at the moment. They're struggling on, but they did get a really good draw somewhere tough to go on Saturday. Where was it? 2-2?
Yeah, it was a tough place to go.
Yeah, that's a tough place to go. Yeah. Who was it? They drew it. Anyway, it was a good draw. So they're there for the taking in some respects. I'm stumbling here.
Talk to us about that game on Saturday.
Look up who they played on Saturday. They played away from home. Who was it? Was it Reading? I can't remember. Anyway, they got a good draw away from home, and so maybe that suggests they're coming back into a bit of form. But the statistics are bad. They've not won in 8 games. I think they've lost about 6 of them. So it is a good. I'll stop waffling now. It's a good chance for Blackpool to go out like they did at Doncaster, who were also struggling, and get a win. It won't be easy. Tough place to go, etc., etc. But really, if you're going to go up, that is the kind of game you need to go and win.
And they'll be hoping to add.
They revenge as well on that game at the start of the season. 1-0 at home, they got beat by Derby.
Yeah, it was a horrible game.
I think it was first home game or second home game. It was a horrible game, and it'd be nice to get their own back for that.
Hopefully, can add 2 new faces back to the squad. Not new faces, but 2 faces back to the squad in Gary Taylor-Fletcher and Matt Phillips.
Yeah, well, is Fletch, as he said?
Fletcher's hinted on Twitter that on Saturday he said he's too soon. Friday's match was too soon, but he's hoping for Tuesday. So
right.
I know he trained on Friday. He was back training at the end of last week.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Yeah, he's a big player for Matty as well. Obviously, Craig Cathcart was still ruled out on him over the weekend. So yeah, there's a few players coming back. And I think they need him just to freshen up again. I think they've looked a little bit thin on the ground up front. I mean, you looked at the options on the bench on Friday night, and it perhaps wasn't as strong as it had been. I think Luala will probably start after not playing on Friday. Just need to go out and get a result, don't they? Whichever way they can do it, whether it be ugly or nice football. I think Ian Everett might come back in. He might give Danny Wilson a rest, perhaps, after he's played those 3 games this week. He played for Scotland under 21s as well. So yeah, he'll probably just make a few changes. I think Keith Southern will stay in though, no matter how shattered it is after that brilliant performance. But yeah, hopefully they'll get a win. And you're covering the game for the Gazette?
Yeah, you're flying off.
I'll off to Paris tomorrow. Yeah, going to see Noel Gallagher tomorrow night in a little cinema.
And I'll be in Derby. I'd want to be nowhere else.
I wish I was there.
Nowhere else in the world would I want to be. Prediction?
I think they'll win tomorrow. Yeah, I think they'll win. Tight 1, 2-1.
That means we're going to get beat.
I'll go
for 2-0. I think
we'll win.
I do think, and I think we'll keep a clean sheet as well. I think that on a nice big pitch, that it'll probably be at Derby. Let's go and get a win.
Yeah. Here. Fingers crossed.